Greetings and welcome to the Astronomy Picture of the Day podcast. Today's picture for June 18th of 2025 is titled Space Station Silhouette on the Moon. So what do we see here? Well, here we see our moon, and we can see many of the distinct features, some of the darker maria or seas, and the lighter colored highlands. And we see one object there off to the right-hand side, and we can take a quick look at that, and that is actually our own International Space Station. Now, the International Space Station isn't anywhere near the moon. It is in low Earth orbit, and only a few hundred miles up above Earth's surface. However, we can, because of its positioning, occasionally see it pass in front of other objects, and we've seen images of it passing in front of the sun and here in front of the moon. And that's just because of its positioning, and especially because of the larger size of those two objects, make it a little bit easier to get that kind of picture. Now, the International Space Station, about the size of a football field here, so it appears very large relative to the moon. That's because of the different distances. It is much closer, so it appears larger than it would relative to our moon, which is much more distant. So if you put them at the same distance, it would appear much, much smaller. Now, going back to our moon overall, we can see a number of different features there, and we can see some of the heavily cratered regions, especially the lighter regions, known as the highlands. Now, the number of craters that we see is really related to the age of the surface, how long it has been since the moon's surface in that area has been reworked. Those darker areas that we see have been flooded more recently, and we'll see that they don't have as many craters around. There are still some craters, and these regions are still billions of years old. However, they are much younger than the 4 to 4.5 billion year age of the highland areas. And in fact, those areas date back to the very origin of the solar system itself. When the moon formed, those were some of the first areas, and they've essentially been unchanged for that time. So some of those regions and parts of them explored by some of the Apollo missions back in the 1960s and 1970s was to study some of that very earliest material and bring back samples of some of those very early parts of the moon. Now, of course, we wanted to look at the Maria too, because that tells us something about the activity on the moon. And while it's likely the moon has not been active in any way recently, it still has been active as of a few billion years ago. So 3 or 3.5 billion years ago, there were still flooding. So the great impacts that hollowed out those basins and then were filled with lava from the interior that wiped out any craters that had been present there. And then any other craters on top of it, those are more recent. Those are the ones that have happened within those last billion or years or so. So the cratering rate has not been constant. There were lots more impacts occurring in the very early history of the solar system as compared to the last billion years or so. And we can see some of that in the different aging and the different number of craters in different regions on a place like our moon. So that was our picture of the day for June 18th of 2025. It was titled Space Station Silhouette on the Moon. We'll be back again tomorrow for the next picture. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.